along the rural parts of Netherlands in the city, where you're just smooth sailing with no problems. But that's not everywhere the case. So these are one of my favorite encounters in Ireland, which is the kissing gates. But I think now they're kind of like hopefully gonna be stopped at some point to see that they're just blocking permeability. This is just the notion of how it is in the Middle East, where I'm from. Just highways, building highways and cars. So like the idea of cycling is almost impossible. Cars also in different cities where they're blocking the view of the beautiful waters. Here, you're not allowed to cycle, even though there's a lot of place, and more cars and congestion where it's almost unsafe to cycle. So I'm going to take you through the agenda of today. Basically, I'm just going to introduce Amsterdam and the Netherlands, give you some context on that, and then move forward and tell you why it has become such an attractive cycling capital of the world, and where teachings come from there mostly for the time being. Also, Copenhagen is a competing city with that as well. And then go through you some of the notions of the teachings from our lecturers on how to become a cycling city and what's next for Ireland as well. So a lot of this will be including some of Irish perspective here in the how to become a cycling city. So just a little bit of intro. I did this week course in Amsterdam with these lovely people, 26 people, and other lecturers and staff. And it was from all over the world, like even Australia, Iran. Sorry, I need to catch my breath. And Italy, Germany, from everywhere except the Netherlands, obviously, except the lecturers are from there. It was very, very, very informative, but it was also very experimental in some parts. It was not just lectures, it was a lot of cycling. We went around the city a lot. This lovely lady here in the center, she is, let me just use this. She helps the community of migrants in the south of Amsterdam to help them cycle, because a lot of people, when they come as refugees and such, the idea of cycling is a bit foreign for them in the city. So she kind of guides them and teaches them how to do that. And that was very interesting. So yeah, it was just a lot of beautiful moments and definitely very transformative. It was like a rabbit hole of cycling. And sometimes I wonder if I'm ever back from it. So this is Amsterdam, as we all know. Amsterdam is known to be a powered city, as well as other cities in the Netherlands, of course. There's a lot of influence from a lot of the world that they brought back. Sometimes they call it stolen influence, and which they admit to have brought a lot of affluence to their country. And it's unique because it's always mostly flat. Yeah. So that's obviously a big factor to why it's so easy to cycle there. Not to forget that, of course. This is just a notion of what's it like in Amsterdam. A lot of beautiful canals, people cycling. What's unique is just there are no cars, no noise, and that's something to be appreciated. This is just some footage from there. Yeah. This is actually from Utrecht, not Amsterdam. But what's always important for them is how to design these cities and keep them in top shape, basically. There's always going back and forth with the design and infrastructure. There's not like you design one thing and you leave it be. So that notion is very interesting and nice in their policies. This is a photo of one of the main parks where the museum quarter is. And there was like a live debate between people. And I thought that was very unique to them. And it's also, as I said, it influences a lot of their policies and how it's always trying to be best. Yeah, that's true. So how did it become such a beautiful city with a lot? This is an image I took from the train going into Amsterdam. Yeah. And it was just like this a main road for cyclists, above cars, a lot of cycle parking, just nice place to be. So it's not always been like this. So how did it become so? So back in the 60s, when cars started to dominate the world, a lot of the visions for Amsterdam, for example, in 2000, it was supposed to look like this, which is funny enough, looks like Dubai now. I just thought it looked quite similar, especially with this tower here, it looks a bit similar to that. And so with the 60s having such a heavy infestation of cars, and everyone wanted to just go build big for roads and cars. And that was the case. So a lot of the spaces were taken away from people and pedestrians and cyclists, which was very, very abundant there at the time. But at the same time, a lot of deaths happened. And especially in the 70s, there was a big social movement. It's called Stop the Kindermoord, which is Stop the Killing of Children, because out of the 3,300 deaths that in 1971 that happened was 500 of them were children. And the children had to also be part of, were included in that protest and social movement and building coalition. And there's a nice video on internet, on YouTube. I'm not gonna put it in here, but I just took some screenshots where like the kids wrote some essays about cars and how they're unbearable, they're taking all the space, we can't ride cycles, we can't ride our bicycles. However, it continued, the movement, and there was obviously there's several divisions to it. So one of them is the white bicycle, and this is a famous quote in the Netherlands about bicycle, which is a bicycle is something but almost nothing at all. And it started from this movement of white bicycle, where they saw the car as a capitalistic endeavor from the city, and they wanted to take back that kind of notion, and they just took a lot of white bicycles, and they left them around. They took a lot of bicycles, painted them white, and left them in the city for everyone to use as an act of defiance. So this is a bit of a graph for some cities in Europe until the 90s, where it showed like how cycling was quite a big transport mode until it went down in the 60s, where a car came in. And what's interesting also for Amsterdam is the mode share of bicycle is 25%, is always stuck to 25% until the 2000s. And that's part probably because they took up that whoever wants to cycle already cycles, so that the numbers could not change much or increase. So what's unique about Amsterdam after all these social movements and changes throughout the years, this is how much cycling there is. There's a lot of the data that comes from there. For me, one of the things I wanted to highlight is how 80% of the urban streets are calmed to be a speed of 30 kilometers or less. As such, this is a shared road, but bicycle as priority. So this is the sign where it says the cars are basically guests in the street. And this is one of the major roads in Amsterdam. And this is everywhere, more or less, in the case. So this is a map of Amsterdam, just showing you all the colors are basically 30 kilometers or less, except the red ones, which are on the outskirts and more industrial parts and so on. And also what the Netherlands has become such a transfer hub for this kind of knowledge. Arup is part of it as well in the Dutch Cycling Embassy, which is a public-private network of sustainable bicycle inclusive mobility. And I'm just reading a quote from their website, and they present the best of Dutch cycling knowledge, experience, and experts offered by private companies, NGOs, research institutions, national and local governments, which is all here, including Arup. Oh, All right. So what made Amsterdam become such a defined cycling hub is also something that can happen everywhere, and nothing is the same forever, and any city can do this, and nothing is forever. So this is where I'm going to go into more how context is important, and what seems to be so unique to the Netherlands can be applied everywhere in different contexts. So each city is unique, each city has its own thumbprint, and it can be very possible to happen anywhere. So these are the main 5 points that I took, as well as Ruth Oldenseal, one of the lecturers, emphasized, and it kind of tried to encompass a lot of the other lectures into this. So it's not word to word from her, but it is more or less the conclusion of our lectures. I just want to highlight something about Ruth. She tried to do a book about Cork, about the history of Cork and cycling in Cork. But I think she went into some, I think it was kind of scrubbed, the whole idea. But there's a few books about different cities in Europe, like Rotterdam, and well, actually also Johannesburg in South Africa, and a few others in Europe. And just it was very interesting to see the history, and I think it's very important in telling. And I will brush onto that later. Obviously, there's no silver bullets, so intervention matters, and I'm going to go through the points now. So cycling is a culture, and there's many reasons why we cycle. For Ireland, context matters, but for me, for example, for a lot of people, I think it's just a beautiful machinery of joy. And we can't deny how fun it is to cycle when you don't have to deal with cars. Or at least my mom thought so too at some point. Some kids in in Ireland. This is footage from Ireland that I gathered up from the internet. I think has to be more, and I'll show you more later on. But just shows you how perspective of kids and females back in the day in Ireland, how joyful it is. This is a photo from a photography gallery, but it shows you kids in Latin America enjoying building their bicycles. And this is a quote from a kid talking about how fun it is for him to like pimp up his bike, basically. And there's so many uses for cycling, and it could be a social event, it could be for cargo, it could be a tandem, it could be for fun, it could be just to look cool. And also females can wear heels and cycle better than walking, actually, sometimes. And so the main question for Ireland so this is a collage of photos I took from Ireland, Dublin specifically, and the question is whether they are machines of joy, active resistance here, like a Ukraine protest. Is it just for speed? Is it just to get to A to B, or what it is? And I know now the Dublin City Council in their national sustainable mobility document, they actually are including these kind of questions in surveys to understand why people cycle, because there's many facets to it. But I think everyone would like no cars while cycling at the end of the day. So marketing and bikenomics, sorry, no, that's the wrong slide, title. So this is social movement and coalition. So in Ireland, this is a photo of Irish women's liberation movement, which started in the 70s. And I just showed that to show that there is a movement for change when people see it. This is just some newspaper data about deaths of cars. There were some cycling in the city. There were active movements to cycle away from cars. This has just happened 2 weeks ago in Dublin, where a DJ just goes around the world and it just does a big rally of music and cycling. And if this could happen, then what else could come up in terms of seeing the roads just filled up with bikes is very interesting. So for marketing, this is a bus that it's not in Ireland, but yesterday I saw a bus where it says, oh, get insurance to buy a car. This is, I think, more viable to have on buses about supporting public transport and cycling and walking and active travel in this day and age. Capel Street was a beautiful endeavor in Dublin. I wish there was more marketing for it, but this is one of the signs I took when it happened. I know we have a housing crisis in Dublin. This is one of the images, one of the signs that I saw once, and I thought it was interesting. So this is also another sign I saw in Dublin where it's calling it a smart city, but before it can become a smart city, it needs to start to be in the people city. So as important data is, and it is, it helps a lot to inform a lot of the information and on how to build and design better, but at the same time, not to forget that it needs to aim for something more humanistic. Economics, this was probably one of my favorite lectures from a company called Decisio, highlighted here. They study they do the cost-benefit analysis of cycling in cities and how beneficial it is. And it's very useful to marketing, I think, and it could be very handy to have in Ireland. This is snippets of their conclusions and studies. So, for example, increased rates of walking and cycling result in cleaner air and less noise pollution. By 2024, estimated reduction in car traffic would be worth 19 million per year. For example, for health, investments in active mobility could reduce diabetes to such an extent that the city would save 13 million per year. If every cyclist in Rotterdam could travel a kilometer per hour faster on his or her bicycle in 2024, the city would gain 26 million per year, and so forth. So for the third factor in how to build a cycling city, obviously cycling cannot be by itself. So a cohesive network of cyclists and buses and a whole network of different mobilities. I'm trying to make this play. I'm not sure how. Just give me a second time. Oh, there. So this is a video from Dublin. It's not. I think it goes along the O'Connell Street, just shows you how all modes of transport happening all at once. Nobody's scared to die, but obviously the speeds of cars and buses is very, very low. So it used to happen, but what happened next is probably a lot of safety and deaths, just created more and more separation from cars. But important to note with this alternative mobilities, that pedestrians and people are to be at top of the hierarchy. Cyclists come next, and taxis and shared mobility, obviously cars should be way down. But at the same time, I just wanted to highlight that in Amsterdam, which is unique, that even though it's cycling capital of the world, pedestrians don't have a lot of freedom of movement there, in the sense that it's not pleasant to walk in Amsterdam as other cities are, like, for example, Rotterdam and others. So it is what it is there, and it's nice to cycle there, but as well, I think Ireland it does a lot better for pedestrians, and that's also something to appreciate. So this is the different modes of transport. A lot of people use the Dart in Ireland, and it's very important. One of the major issues that the Netherlands faces at the moment is the rise of the train cyclist. So for me to take this bike on the train, it cost me almost a ticket, the actual price of the tickets to travel. So what they do usually is they use shared mobility, shared bikes, which is called overfiets, but you have to be a resident in the Netherlands to be able to do that. So it's a big problem there, but obviously they cycle so much. So and they equate taking your bicycle on the train to almost taking your car on the plane. So it's a big problem, and it's something to hopefully in the future in Ireland it could be tackled ahead of time. Obviously, the beautiful buses are always in assistance to the whole network. And as I said, the priority is cyclists and pedestrians. And as I said before, walking is very important, and it is a speed that needs to be appreciated. So, like cycling, you can enjoy that, but also walking could be a different kind of activity that needs to be allowed for and accommodated for more so in our cities and in Ireland. So for more design models and traffic engineering stuff, the Netherlands obviously has a lot to offer and we can learn a lot. This is the calming measures they have in little neighborhoods. So you're only allowed for cyclists to drive through here unless you're a local. Intersection design is quite one of the most sought after there. I'll go into that in a bit. So this is the famous Visserplein. We went to the Transport Authority of Amsterdam. I didn't take this video myself, but we went on the rooftop to kind of like look at it at their endeavor here. So this is how it looked like, for example, and they have this. They have invented this thing called the Banana Island, and it is one of their crown jewels of designs at the moment because it accommodates for more people. So 22 cyclists can fit in here rather than 13 in 10 seconds. Let me just show you a video. I think it's better. So you can see here the way they cram up here, they're actually blocking those people from that side. Also, I have to highlight, walking is almost impossible here because I tried to like cross the road to get to the building and it's quite hard to do that. So that's one thing to note, but obviously it's a beautiful advanced infrastructure that can be applied in a lot of cities. So this is a kind of my understanding of how it is with cycling infrastructure. It's either you're serious about it. It's like a lot of the cycling infrastructure in cities are fragmented and they're not part of a cohesive network and they're not real. They're just almost, I don't want to say fake because that's not the right word because they do serve a purpose, but they're not part of a whole network. So this is Amsterdam showing you the roads, and this is how much cycling there is the cycling network is like there. In Dublin, this is the road traffic map, and this is how the cycling infrastructure looks like. There's a lot of continuity, obviously, around the canals, and Ireland excels at its greenways, but also there's a lot of fragmentation, and it's better to look at it all cohesively. But at the same time, all these networks does motivate people to cycle more. And one of my favorite roads here, this is one of the roads where like anyone and everyone can cross and cycle. I've often cycled and crossed the road because the traffic is so low sometimes during the day, and it's mostly buses and taxis, so they know what's going on. But if this could be all one big shared space, I think it would be more successful. There's a lot of neglect sometimes to the infrastructure. And this is obviously, there's a reason for this because there's construction around the site. But I just wanted to highlight how things can be neglected and not looked back on, and things should be looked on. Some of the I call this seagull versus bike, but he was trying to get the trash down there. But at the same time, this is, I have to emphasize this because I tried cycling here once recently because it's just open. It's a beautiful, beautiful space, but there was no bike parking at all. And I just found a cycle hoop here at the end. one of these little devices that are very helpful. This is a cycle hoop company that creates all these kind of like beautiful designs to accommodate for cycle parking. One of them is this in Cork as well. This is in one of the neighborhoods in Dublin, and this bike has always been there, and it's never been stolen, never been changed, and I pass it almost every day, and it's nice to know bike theft is not always a thing. And because people cycle so much in the Netherlands, not even on people's minds, the only thing that is on their mind is basically not having their bikes thrown into the canals. So that's why you have to lock them up. But that comes with time, obviously, and it would be nice to just be able to park your bike and not have your bike wheels also stolen from it. This is some of the bike infrastructure in schools. This is in Galway, and it's nice to see how many little kids cycle to school. But also there are some problems with cycle parking. So it's something that needs to be studied and looked into further, because it can be a nuisance. People here can't, for example, walk. In the Netherlands, it has indeed become a nuisance on their streets, and it's a big problem. And one of the major issues is along with the train cyclists. So this is just a photo of like how they had to build this thing here so people can just actually walk. And it's just a little shout out to Drury Car Park, because they have a amazing cycling infrastructure, and I always feel safe to leave my bike there during the day and night. So urban form, one of my favorite topics, is very important to study and analyze. This is just a little map of the Amsterdam. It just shows you how change in urban form has happened, and always there's changes on how it's been and was like. So it's always good to know what it used to be like. And the same case for Dublin. So this is the famous map from Roke in 1765. So this city of Dublin at that time was not built for cars. So it's always good to look into the roots, the original roots of walking and cycling, and apply that to the city today. There's a beautiful route to take along the Halfpenny Bridge, but there's always a lot of blocks and roads, and this permeability is always an issue. Now Capel Street is open. I think it's somewhere here, and there's a road along the Halfpenny that is yet to be open for pedestrian and no traffic in there, but those kind of initiatives are always something to look forward to in cities. So part of the urban form, it's to understand cities. This is one of the Bibles of urban planners, the image of the city, and how to understand the city through nodes, routes, limits, districts, and landmarks. Every person interacts in the city differently, and it's important to note that. And that's important for wayfinding. So for one of the lectures that we had was about wayfinding and signage systems. And one of the activities was to like draw the city of Amsterdam from our heads, which would be very interesting to draw to see examples of that of Dublin, of how we interact in the city of Dublin and what we take into our brains. And there's all these mental maps that we create in the city, and to study that and implement that into the design could be very interesting as well. So this is the city of Dublin. This is the heart of the core of pedestrian movements, and where people would like to be. But at the same time, this is what's being built on the outskirts. This is Leopardstown, and because of the housing crisis, a lot of projects are just coming up, and it loses a lot of the, let's say, soul of the city. And just to be aware of that, and that could be problematic at some point if it's not connected to the city in a good way. This is obviously in the construction, could look different later. So also one of the major important things to note in cities and planning the mobile metropolis. This is also another favorite lecture, was about the land zoning and urban form. So this is what like a public transport oriented city would look like as versus to car oriented city, where it's very fragmented. and you will always need a car to get places. Here, you're connected through public transport. Also, to add to that, cycling. Cycling can increase the catchments of certain areas. I'm not sure if everyone heard about the 15-minute city concept and so on, but it's important when you build and you try to expand the city to keep aware of and to include in your design. And there's a lot of data I can also provide later on if someone wants to look at it. Just a lot of stuff that we learned. And finally, what's next? As I said, the National Sustainable Mobility Policy Framework mentions a lot of the things that I've mentioned, and 15-minute cities included, and studying the cohorts and why people cycle, as well as they emphasize the increase in mode share to 11% from 3.7 by 2042. So, and with a significant reduction in car modal shift. So hopefully that stays true and will happen. So there's always hope at the end of the tunnel. Obviously, we need to get rid of cars and just look at them and think of the past. I have to emphasize, I do like driving sometimes, but not in traffic. So, and cars can be nice. It's a nice speed, but it's not for cities. It could be something to be done on a weekend out in the rural parts of the country. So Earth, we are invasive species as we built all these cities, but there's a lot of problems in climate change at the moment, and we need to be more conscious and aware of all that stuff before we get to this part. And to emphasize the current era of today, of this year, in 50 years ago, there was an oil embargo on a lot of countries in Europe, just as there's a lot of problems with oil being expensive and gas prices are going up. So just 50 years ago, that happened as well. And that kind of put a stop to the Netherlands and made them very aware to find a different mode of transport and get away from cars. So hopefully a lot of cities in Europe can follow suit as well now. And even Dubai is trying. And this is one of their visions to increase just landscape, even though it's a desert, they're gonna try to do this somehow. But you can see car is the main artery of the city. So my point is just never give up. And in the quote of Einstein, life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. And if you have questions, please let me know. I have a lot more to share. Thank you. Anyway, it's open for questions and comments if anyone has any. And if not, let me know. Also, this was part of a Transport Europe Skill Network session. So I just included the Irish staff today because I was talking about it. Any questions?
Lana, thanks a million. That was very good. Of the things that you would have seen over there, and a lot of us would have been to the Netherlands, and it's not just Amsterdam. And in fact, some of the best examples are outside Amsterdam. But of the things that you would have seen there, what is the thing that you feel that is applied there, infrastructure-wise, that have applied there that could really be useful in Irish cities?
The calming measures that they have, like those little neighborhoods and the Vunach, as they call them, those can be really applied here. And I live in a neighborhood in Dublin where I can see that happening. If we can increase those along the little neighborhoods like Cabra, Stoneybatter, I think that would be very good start. And just the idea of the 30 kilometer per hour, the speed is very important. And I saw a lot of stickers and initiatives in my neighborhood as well about 30 kilometer per hour and how less people die because of those speeds. So that kind of stuff.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Hi, Lara.
Hi.
It's Osama Anwar, and I recently moved to Dublin from Middle East. So I have a question. Like you are also having same background. So I want to know like how the people with kids manage cycling. Like today is my second day in Dublin. I want to understand the workaround. I have two kids, very young. Not yeah, they can walk around, but yeah, what options we have to or how it can be improved.
I think, what do you mean, like improve, like your
Like
what?
in the planning point of view, like I don't see like maybe I'm wrong. I don't see
You have to
people
cycle. I
like
think
with the kids. Can we manage the cycling? Is there a space over there we can have kids on the cycle? Like
there is an initiative from the government called Safe Routes to School, and they're working on that in the Dublin city centre. I don't think
I,
it's
I
I
could
have
probably
no
I could probably come in there. Dublin City Council particularly are looking very carefully about parking for cargo bikes, for example, what some people call the uh, backfeets, the Dutch word, or the Copenhagen bikes. So the ones with kind of space for kids, and you see them on the street more and more. I
Mhm.
think you're going to see them further now with the electrification of bikes. They become easier, and we have colleagues that are using them into the car park downstairs, for example, that drop the kids to crash and park the bike downstairs. But one of the main constraints is parking. So both parking at your place of work and your place of living. So that's being looked at. We have been working with Dublin City Council on schemes where we take that consideration seriously, because I think it's going to be an exponential growth in the near future, especially because of the electric bikes and the fact that you can have a cargo bike and carry 3 kids without breaking a sweat. So
Yeah.
that's
I
happening.
just have to add, Osama, just being from the Middle East, it was daunting at first to cycle in Ireland. I cycled first in Cork, but you just have to get on it, and like practice makes better, like you understand the roads better, but it can be daunting, but there's a lot of cycle lanes, so just explore those. Obviously, Google Maps doesn't always offer the best options, but you just have to cycle and explore more, I think. And I hope Tiago answered your question there too.
yeah. I got the answer. Thank you. It was really good presentation.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I didn't see the comments there. I'll read them later. There's a lot I didn't do them.
Sorry, I just have sorry, Ian Darcy here from Dublin. I just have a question regarding kind of input, like campaigns and kind of getting buy-in from people and general society. Like how much of that is there or was there initially, and is it petered off or has it been maintained?
Sorry, again, I didn't follow
Like
the
kind
first
of
part.
ad campaigns, public leaflets, public consultation, that kind of engagement.
I am not completely fully aware of how much effort is into that. And I think there needs to be more, because the public there's a bit of resistance always when the projects come about. So there's cycling, how do you say, extremists in Ireland.
Advocacy groups.
Advocacy groups, sorry. And but as well, I know they can be a bit. I'm not sure. Like I can't elaborate a lot on that because I haven't interacted with them. But I don't know much. I think there is a notion in the sustainable mobility policy to do more.
Okay, no, it's just a question.
Yeah, I know, and I wish there's more.
Thank you.
Who else had a question? Thank you. Someone had else.
Lana, can I'm Simon here.
Yes, hi Simon.
If I mean, you've learned a lot when you were over there, and you've seen a lot. What would you say? What's the first thing you would do if you get free reign, to change Dublin to a cycling city? And what do you think is the first thing that should be done to?
I think it's in my opinion, and what I've seen and what kept being emphasized, is the context and history. So you need to look at the history of Dublin, understand the context better, and look at the map and look at the plans, and look at it as urban planner, city planner style looking, not as engineers. And I think that's sometimes lacking here. So I think start from the beginning, which is look at the history and context. And those books from Ruth are very important to showcase the will that people could have and how the city is designed for walking and cycling before cars. So putting that out there and then going into marketing, and then so I think that step needs to be done first, and then you can go into the other stuff, and which you can take a lot of knowledge from Netherlands and other cities in UK as well.
Okay.
That's my opinion, though. Anyone else? I totally forgot to record this, by the way. So I'm sorry for whoever didn't attend. Anyone else has questions? I hope it was useful. Yeah, Olivier.
It is recording. It is recording.
Oh,
I'll share
thank
the
you.
recording with you at the end.
Oh, appreciate it. No, it comes up. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else has questions? To wrap this up, I took a lot of your time already.
Lana, that was very good. I just wanted to maybe as a message for everybody else, because there's a lot of people who are not in the transport side of things on the audience, and that obviously, and a lot of people are new to Arup as well. So questions about cycling and what are we doing and how we should address things, and ideas are always welcomed in the transport team. So if you want to engage on this topic, there's people on the transport team in Dublin, the second floor, for those who are new to Arup. And you know, we're happy to have a discussion about these things, because these are things that affect us all directly. We all use our streets, and we may be cyclists, or we may be drivers, or maybe pedestrians. We're all pedestrians, by the way. And that's something. We're all humans, exactly, and we move about. And I think that we have a good resource of skills and knowledge in this item that affects us all, and make use of it. We're here to have a chat over a coffee or whatever, because we want to learn from outside as well.
Yeah, and thank you for the comments. I'll look at them and answer accordingly later. That's it then. Thanks everyone. Have a nice lunch. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.